Picture this, it's 1989. Japan is unstoppable. Tokyo real estate is so valuable that the land under the Imperial Palace is said to be worth more than all of California. Japanese corporations are buying Rockefeller Center and Hollywood studios. Economists aren't asking if Japan will become the world's largest economy, but when, fast forward just 3 years, 1992, and it's all gone. The stock market's been cut in half. Real estate prices are collapsing. And here's the wild part, 35 years later, Japan still hasn't recovered. Now, here's what should really make you nervous. America is walking down that same road. The same warning signs, the same policy mistakes, the same denial. What if the economic nightmare Japan has been living through for 3 decades is about to happen here? What if the warning isn't coming, it's already here? This isn't just about numbers on a screen or some abstract theory. It's about your savings, your job, your ability to buy a home, your retirement, your kids' future. Japan's lost decades meant real people losing everything they'd built, families watching their savings evaporate, and an entire generation giving up on marriage and children because the economy had no future. If America repeats Japan's mistakes, your purchasing power could shrink even without visible inflation. Your career could stall like Japan's lost generation. Your retirement could stagnate while social programs strain under massive debt. And the entire global order, America's economic dominance, the dollar's reserve status could shift. By the end of this, you'll understand the 3 key mistakes that triggered Japan's collapse and why America is repeating them. The hidden forces that turned a bubble into 3 decades of stagnation, and what that means for your daily life. This isn't doom and gloom, it's pattern recognition. And the patterns are screaming warnings that almost no one is hearing. Imagine filling a balloon with helium until it's almost ready to burst. That was Japan in the 1980s. Between 1985 and 1989, Tokyo stock prices tripled. After the Plaza Accord in 1985, the yen surged, hurting Japan's exporters. To offset that, the Bank of Japan slashed interest rates to 2.5%. Cheap money flooded the system. Banks lent recklessly, using inflated real estate as collateral. Borrowers used those loans to buy more land, which pushed prices even higher. It became a self-feeding cycle of speculation. Some banks even issued 100-year mortgage loans that would outlive the borrower, their children, and even their grandchildren. But all bubbles burst. When the Bank of Japan finally raised rates in 1989, the economy imploded. You can't slowly deflate a balloon stretched that far. It pops. And when the crash came, Japan made its second critical mistake. In a normal market, bad companies fail, freeing up resources for new ones. Japan didn't let that happen. Banks refused to acknowledge their bad loans, terrified of insolvency. Instead, they kept lending just enough to keep bankrupt companies on life support. Economists call them zombie companies. Why keep them alive? Because if the loans were recognized as worthless, the banks themselves would collapse. So, the government turned a blind eye. This extend and pretend strategy created an economy full of walking dead companies, able to innovate, unable to grow, but too politically and financially connected to die. Healthy businesses couldn't compete, entrepreneurship dried up, and the economy ossified. Japan's third mistake came when the government tried to fix things with ever more extreme policies. The central bank cut rates to 0. When that didn't work, they went negative. They pioneered quantitative easing, printing money to buy government bonds a full decade before the US tried it. They even bought stocks and corporate debt. But nothing reignited growth. Consumers and businesses had been burned too badly. They refused to borrow or spend, no matter how cheap money became. And then came demographics. Japan's population peaked in 2008 and began to shrink. Fewer workers, fewer consumers, less demand. It became a deflationary spiral that policy couldn't reverse. The result? A once unstoppable economy trapped in slow motion for 35 years. And now, America in 2025 is showing the same signs. Japan's stagnation wasn't just economic, it tore at the fabric of society. The lost generation graduated into a dead job market. Companies stopped hiring full-time workers and relied on low-paid, temporary jobs instead. Nearly 40% of Japan's workforce became non-regular employees. Marriage rates plunged, birth rates collapsed, and a new phenomenon appeared: hikikomori, young people who withdrew from society entirely. Over 1 million Japanese live that way today. The parallels to America are unsettling. Record numbers of young people living with their parents, delaying marriage and kids, feeling locked out of opportunity. Sound familiar? Then there's Japan's government debt, the highest in the developed world. Over 260% of GDP. Japan hasn't had a balanced budget since 1992. It avoided a debt crisis only because its citizens keep buying government bonds, allowing the illusion to continue. But it's a fragile illusion, one that collapses the moment confidence breaks. And deflation, perhaps the most dangerous part. Once people expect prices to fall, they stop spending, which drives prices even lower. It becomes psychological quicksand. For decades, Japanese consumers have been trained to save instead of spend, to wait instead of act. Even massive money printing couldn't change that mindset. The US Federal Reserve has followed a similar path: zero interest rates, money printing, endless government debt, and bailouts for companies that should have failed. And like Japan, the US is now discovering that you can't print prosperity. You can only delay the reckoning. Japan's story is a warning about what happens when a nation refuses to confront its own excesses. It's not the crash that destroys you, it's the stagnation that follows. It's the slow erosion of confidence, opportunity, and hope. But history isn't destiny. Japan's outcomes were shaped by choices: protecting zombie companies, avoiding hard reforms, ignoring demographics. America can still choose differently. The question is whether it will. Because if it doesn't, 30 years from now, people might look back and say the same thing about us, that we had every warning in front of us, and we still repeated Japan's mistakes. If this opened your eyes to those patterns, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into how history echoes through today's economy. And tell me in the comments, what do you think is the most dangerous parallel between 1980s Japan and America right now? I read every single one.